this morning. That is our tweetable. Interact with us. Keep the tweets coming. All right. Now, the newly constituted Supreme Court will start hearing cases on a priority basis from this morning under the leadership of new Chief Justice David Maraga. The top court now has not sat since June due to quorum hitches following the retirement of CJ Mutunga, Deputy Chief Justice Kalpana Rawal, and Judge Philip Tunoi. The court will hear high priority cases continuously until December 15th. Judges of the top court are understood to have held a retreat to list down those cases they should give priority and how fast they should hear them.
The culmination of months of a vigorous search to find the new head of the Apex Court. 66-year-old Maraga was sworn in the state house before.
All right, so let's have now a conversation around that. Joining me in studio right now is Victor Oboni, who is an advocate. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Victor. What are these priority cases that the Supreme Court will start hearing from today?
Since there was the quorum hitch, we have had almost all cases that were pending before that court, and others that were filed under. Despite the fact that there were no judges, people were still filing matters in that court.
Okay.
And the most that could happen is that people will take directions from the deputy registrar because the court could not sit. So there are many cases. So depending on how urgent a matter is, I think the deputy registrar in the court, when listing these matters, will consider the urgency of the matters. For example, there are still pending electoral matters, which are still pending before that court. So I believe, considering we are going to the next general election in a few months' time, I think those will be given priority so that they are dispensed with. I think that will be proper.
Things to do with the elections.
Things to do with the elections.
All right, let's talk about David Maraga. Is this normally what essentially is supposed to happen, or has he sort of like jump-started the Supreme Court? Because the Supreme Court is going to be going for recess in a matter of weeks. But then here he is a case of him trying to, make sure that some of these cases are heard and determined before recess. What does that say about him as a leader right now?
That is a good picture, but that is what was expected.
It is expected.
Because of the lull that has been there. It is expected that you deal with these matters. Because we say justice delayed is justice denied. So these matters that have been pending, the court has been largely asleep, save for the registry. So it's only proper that they deal with these matters before.
All right. Let's talk about some of the key rulings that were made during the Mutunga era, so to speak. One of them, of course, was the presidential election debate. Then there's also the gender rule. And, the Supreme Court, being the apex, of the judiciary, is really expected to, to continue with this, with that particular, spectra and perspective of, giving out those kind of rulings. With David Maraga, how different is he going to be from Willie Mutunga?
Actually, the Supreme Court is the only court that is not bound by its decisions. So they can actually depart. And when we expect that court to depart from that Raila Odinga judgment, because it was a bad judgment, everyone knows.
It was a bad judgment.
It was a bad judgment.
How can you qualify that? Because, the court sat and said, and it was, there are five people in the bench.
See, courts make mistakes, courts go wrong. That's why we have appeals. You can start from the magistrate court and you end up getting a different opinion at the Supreme Court because they also make mistakes. There are differences in interpretation of the law. So the fact that the court made that decision does not mean we accept it as a decision of the court, but we are allowed to criticize that decision, although we are bound. And I mean, that is what everyone said, including the petitioner in that petition. The Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, said, we'll be bound, we accept, but we don't agree with it.
Well,
So,
that is debatable,
it is
Victor.
debatable, and as an advocate, I'm saying in my opinion,
Yes.
and I'm entitled to my opinion, that was a wrong judgment, a bad one that should not be followed. And I expect the new bench as constituted to depart fundamentally from the philosophy of that judgment.
All right. Looking forward, I mean, let's also talk about, the gender question. And it's something that, the court ruled about it, I think it was in December 2012, giving saying that, that process cannot be immediate, but it's going to be successive. What do you think of that, Judge? Progressive. That's the progressive is the word. Are we going to see any fire from this newly constituted bench?
That question, the court has already pronounced itself on it. I remember there's a court pending in court. There's a matter pending in court filed by the Gender Commission, challenging the nomination, the then nomination, because he has now been appointed,
right,
of Justice Isaac Lenaola, who actually comes from a minority,
yes,
a minority tribe, and I expected that commission to actually support Justice Lenaola, who is coming from a minority, because as part of their mandate is to defend and ensure people from there is that inclusivity.
But the inclusivity,
it's not merely about gender, and even the gender question does not arise. We have 7 judges of the Supreme Court, and two are women. So where does the 2/3 miss? If you do your math, you cannot have a third of a human being. Honestly speaking, you cannot have a third of a human being.
Yeah, that's
and then I would want the Gender Commission to tell us why they did not question the other court, because even in the other court,
they said that they questioned it, but they were not very successful in their quest.
And I think they will not be successful even now. Further, I mean, I think that matter has been overtaken. In any event, Justice Lenaola will be sitting today, hopefully.
Right.
He has been appointed as a judge of the Supreme Court, so that matter is dead. But even if we are looking at that 2/3 rule, you cannot single out the Supreme Court. I mean, this is the judiciary. These are employees of the Judicial Service Commission. So we are looking at judiciary as a whole. I mean, you cannot pick one court and say it's not representing 2/3 gender. But even if we were to pick the Supreme Court alone, still the 2/3 gender rule has been perfectly complied with.
Okay.
Tell these gender people when you meet them to look at the appointments that Jubilee are making and tell us if they're qualifying. They should start there.
They should start from the Jubilee administrations.
From the appointments.
From the appointments. All right, let's talk about, because the Supreme Court really, they've been dealing with quite a number of issues, from the retirement age dispute, and many Kenyans lost confidence in it as a serious institution in this country. Do you think that with this process being very, very open to the public, the appointment of the Chief Justice together with the Deputy Chief Justice has been out in the open, the interviews have been out in the open, do you think that is going to sort of inspire confidence in Kenyans in regards to this court?
When you say it was open, I have my reservations. I mean, you see, there were hiccups. First, with the shortlisting of the candidates.
Right.
When we asked for reasons, they refused. They said they were going to give. Then later, they said they cannot. The same Judicial Service Commission, after nominating Justice Maraga, one of the commissioners came and said he had a certain number of points that he was leading. When we asked to be told how much these other people scored, the chair came out and said there was nothing like that. It was it was unanimous. But I mean, there can be no unanimity. When you're doing interviews, you must award marks. Then, if you are unanimous, you must be unanimous in the award of marks that this particular candidate scored 80. Another commission awarded 80.
But the commission said that they were not in any way bound to give, sort of like, a marking scheme for the candidates?
Not a marking scheme. We are saying this person came number one. How did he come number one? You must have awarded some points. Otherwise, if you did not, what criteria did you use to arrive at that? And we are talking about an open and democratic society. So this idea of we are not bound, is mischievous. And why the two conflicting statements from the same commission?
All right. But then now that they're in, now it's
now
water
that
under
they
the
are in,
bridge. What can they
first,
do to inspire confidence in
I
Kenyans?
believe Justice Maraga will want to do a good job. But I'm afraid he has started on a wrong foot, because when I heard him speak sometimes in Naivasha, he made a statement to the effect that judges should not issue injunctions on matters that are touching on what he described as development projects. First, that affects the independence of the judges. You cannot tell, it is clear in the Constitution, the judges cannot draw their guidance from any authority or person. They should be 100% independent. They are trained, they are hired, they are taken to Judicial Service Training Institute, they are trained, so it is not open for the Chief Justice to start telling them how to decide matters.
Okay.
And if, God forbid, he proceeds in that manner, then we are in trouble. And you look at what the language the Chief Justice was adopting and that of the President on that issue. You remember the railway, the Standard Railway passing through some park. There was a live matter before a tribunal, which is now in court, and these judges are being told you cannot grant injunctions on development matter. And the language from where I sit, the language the Chief Justice was speaking was the language of the President. And God forbid.
Is that really an indication of any, sort of like mischief, or is it just that is standing on the issue?
No. Why? What the President said just a few days ago, then the Chief Justice comes and says the same thing. It looked like there were some instructions. It should appear, and perception is key, even in administration of justice. It should not appear that the Chief Justice has started this early to receive instructions. And, if we were to, there are very well laid down principles of granting injunctions.
Okay.
The Chief Justice cannot add another one called development projects. Because you see, these development projects are what has been used to loot this nation.
Okay. All right. So, but then, moving forward, like you mentioned, so how should he carry himself then when it comes to, him administering or him giving direction on how the Supreme Court is going to rule on certain issues?
No, he cannot give directions on how to rule. There is the law. The judges are merely to follow the law. They are fidelities to the law. He cannot tell them how to rule.
Yeah.
No. That is outside his jurisdiction. Of course, he can issue
practice rules. Is it then how to
rules.
lead?
Yes, practice rules. It is merely administrative and issuing practice rules. But not going to this, you must find, no.
Okay.
That will be a rogue Chief Justice. And I hope that is what we are not going to have, a rogue Chief Justice.
All right. Thank you very much, Victor Bondi, for your insights on this. He is an advocate talking to us about David Maraga, the Chief Justice, who has started his job today. And he's going to start, the Supreme Court is going to start following through and listening to cases of high urgency in the Supreme Court. All right, so we want to take a break on News Center, but let's have a reminder of our question this morning, and we are asking you something to do with the summit, the State House summit that is currently taking place. And we're asking you, has the Jubilee government done enough to address land issues in Kenya? That State House summit is about land, and we're asking you if the Jubilee government has done enough to address land issues here in the country. Keep your comments coming through, and we'll be taking a look at them soon as we come back from this short break. All right, so we take a break here on News Center. Don't go away, we'll be right back.